today I'm interviewing, I'm lucky to have Dean Henry, who's the owner of Clean Living Co., the bone broth company here in Dubai, and he's also a health coach. And I've followed his stuff online for a while, and I've also obviously been a big proponent of your business and bone broth in general. So it's good to finally have you on the podcast. So welcome, Dean.
Thank you, Adam.
Awesome. So before we get into bone broth and your health coaching, can you just give us a little bit of insights into your background and what, I guess, led you into your career with Clean Living Co. and also what you do now?
Yeah, sure. I suppose if we go back to many years ago, I was playing semi-professional football when I was 15, and I had a knee injury, which 20 years later we found out was a snapped ACL, but I had multiple surgeries before we established that and found the result. Yeah. So I think I had 6 knee operations in total, and I was also a sprinter, so I had naturally fast twitch muscles. So I was, I actually wasn't very good at football. I was just quite fast, and I was left-footed. So I said, put him left back, he'll do fine. Yeah. So from that point onwards, really, as soon as I had my injuries, sport was my life. Everything I did was just around sport, really. So for the last sort of 18 months of school, there was quite a decline there where I sort of just lost a bit of confidence and I just wasn't myself. And it took me a good few years to sort of get back to being into fitness again. I was still doing it, but the timing wasn't great because I was also meeting girls, going out partying. So
as you do at that age.
As you do, and I didn't need much of an excuse when I had no ACL. So and then I really got into weight training, sort of bodybuilding type thing. My dad was a professional bodybuilder. His cousin was actually Mr. Universe 3 times.
Oh, wow.
So there's a history of bodybuilding there in the family. So that was quite an easier path for me to follow. The ACL, because even though it was never operated on directly, over that sort of duration of time, it's going to rehab itself as much as it can naturally anyway. And all it did, it reattached itself somewhere else where it shouldn't be in the knee, but it reattached itself enough to give me stability to be able to do as much training as I possibly could. Unfortunately, again, in my teens, I didn't really focus on legs enough. So I avoided leg day far too many times.
Just the beach muscles.
Exactly, I wear long shorts and trousers, I spent sort of the next 12 years or so, I did some boxing where it sort of rehabbed itself, so I was able to do a bit of boxing, but I'd always get a lot of aches and pains because I was always favouring one side. Even in daily movement and daily routine, if I sit up, I'd stand up on one side. If I sit down, I sit down on one side. And over time, that's going to have some sort of an impact, which it did eventually when I was around about 31. The knee sort of just finally gave way. I won't say what I was doing at the time. I had a bit to drink at the time, and the knee finally gave way. And that's when I couldn't even use a clutch in a car where it was just so weak. And then I found a really good surgeon in London. He went in, gave her the X-ray, and said, I don't know how you've been doing the sport that you've been doing because you don't have an ACL. And so he operated on the knee, which was a complete reconstruction. So it was too late to really just focus on the ACL. So he reconstructed my knee, which involved sort of snapping my shin and really quite invasive. 6 months, no weight bearing. Having naturally thin legs, my left leg was just
wasting away,
completely wasting away. And that was the same year that my daughter was born. Actually, my 11-year-old.
Sorry, how many years ago was that?
That was 11. Well, 10 and a half years ago.
10. Okay.
Actually, 11 years ago now. So she was born the same year, and she was born with a nut allergy. So I just started to, and she was given antibiotics. She had a rash on her face, and I just kept giving her more antibiotics, and it just didn't sit right with me. So both my wife and I, we met this sort of Chinese alternative medicine guy, doctor, and he started to look at gut health and bacteria that's sitting in the gut and potential guts that could, potential sort of issues that could have been passed down from the mother during the pregnancy because through intestinal permeability, which we didn't know anything about 11 years ago. And so it just become very investigative. And, with myself, it's not that I blame traditional medicine or anything like that for just giving my daughter antibiotics, because obviously it helped the situation at the time. The knee injury being missed, an ACL being missed 5 or 6 times, I just felt that, there's definitely a must and a need for traditional medicine, but I also think you need to do your own investigation, and that's where it all started really 11 years ago. Yeah,
and with that investigation, there was a doctor, the Chinese medicine specialist that you saw. What research did you start doing on your own? Was there still like a pivotal book or a podcast or something that sort of got that train of thought going, and then it just sort of kept going for you?
Yeah, I don't think there was anything pivotal at the time. I just think it was an accumulation of reading different books, listening to multiple podcasts. Ben Greenfield was always a big one for me. Dave Asprey at the time as well.
Yeah.
And all the books that they would recommend. So there's just, there's a plethora of books that we read through. And essentially, it always seemed to come back to gut health. Everything seemed to lead back to gut health for allergies, for almost everything really, the second brain. So that's really what we started to focus on for the family. And of course that starts with diet.
Yeah, and just touching on gut health, since you brought it up, why, I guess for the listeners, why is it such an important step for health, but also just for getting someone back into healthy food and healthy everything? Why is the gut so important for people?
I think it's the trigger. It's almost the trigger for everything. We've heard many people say now it's the second brain, and there's reasons for that. There's neurotransmitters in the gut. When you feel anxious, you feel it. You don't feel it in your brain first, you feel it in your gut. If you're nervous, you're excited, you feel it in your gut. So there's so much going on there, and it's just so obvious when you put it together that what you put into your body, it goes through your digestive tract, it sits in your gut. So naturally, and some people still argue this, which is beyond me, but naturally it's going to have some sort of reaction. And we may speak about it later, but I've got so many anecdotes and case studies. The one that sits in mind is that a guy that he was so anxious that he couldn't leave his house. He was suffering from anxiety. Absolutely, chronic anxiety, really. And through time, he went to the doctors. They were trying to give him different antidepressant tablets. I said, just take this, and it didn't sit right with him.
Just putting a Band-Aid on something that's not actually fixing the underlying issue.
Yeah, precisely. So, and he took it upon himself. I work closely with him now, but he took it upon himself to do more investigation into this. And he literally just removed sugar from his diet and carbohydrate and high levels of carbohydrates. 3 months, done, finished. No more anxiety.
Yeah, and that's often what I see as well with the coaching that we do. A lot of people think that just spending money on these expensive supplements. You can pour all these expensive supplements into your system, but if you're not absorbing what you're eating, and I guess that links to bone broth. I guess that's part of the reason why you're here is to talk about that. But can you, I guess, link the two between bone broth and gut? How does the mechanisms work? What are the, I guess, the aminos, the things that are actually going to help with the gut permeability and how you actually assimilate food from that?
Yeah, I think, look, to start with, it seems to resonate with people more to buy powders. So if you say this amino acid is really good for gut health, so buy glutamine, and glutamine will be really good for your gut health. Get some proline, get some glycine, it's really good for your gut health. So you get these powders which, as you say, they can be, if everything's functioning okay, then they are probably quite absorbable for that purpose. Glutamine, as you know, has been sold for helping to maintain muscle, which I think is ridiculous. But for gut health, it's it's fine. And then you look at the bone broth profile. And it has these amino acids in there, which are all promoted for being amazing for gut health, and that's how it started. Really, I was just searching online and all the podcasts we listened to were talking about bone broth, but we were searching online for these amino acids, and when you actually type them into Google, it come up with bone broth. Always sort of fall back to bone broth. And then you look at all the other benefits of bone broth, of skin, hair, even though it was a bit late for me when I found that out. All these different benefits. It just seemed to be the obvious choice for us. And whereas, even though my rehab for my surgery and backs and everything else that I'd gone through from then, I was quite on a good level at the time. But where I was training harder now, because I had like 16 years of frustration where I couldn't train. I was training hard, and I was starting to get a lot of aches and pains. And again, my naturopath in the UK was saying, if you try drinking bone broth, the collagen's really good for your joints and what have you. So we just had to get some. And then again, once we started doing further investigation, and us and myself being very anal about what we put into our body, we realised actually you just can't just get any old bones, cook them for 24 hours and then drink them and expect to get all the health benefits that are promoted. So we had to be very anal and careful about where we got our bones from, and we actually started ordering from Queensland, Australia. And the organic grass-fed, the two combined was very important. One or the other, you don't get the benefits, you need the two.
Because it is quite hard just looking, especially in the UAE, to actually find organic grass-fed beef here. You either get, like you said, organic, or they never actually say it's certified grass-fed.
Yeah.
Does that mean it's not, or?
Well, you can get organic grain-fed. If it doesn't say grass-fed, then it's not grass-fed.
Yeah.
So if it's organic, then it'll be organic grain-fed, which is not natural for the animal. So, grass-fed is natural. This is when it promotes more nutrition, amino acids. So, so we had to order it in, and they said, well, okay, if you're going to order bones from Australia, you can't just order a kilo at a time. So they said, if you really want to get you're going to need to order quite a lot. I think it was like, I don't know, about 500 kilos a month or something. I said, okay, that's a lot of bone broth, we can't consume that level. So it was really sort of that triggered us to set up the business here.
So that was literally the start. You investigated that, and they're like, you can't have, 2 kilos of bones, you've got to have 500 kilos.
Yeah.
So that...
Yeah, and I mean, you can, but just, the price we were paying. And, obviously, my business partner, George, who's now in the UK, we was working together at the time. He was trying to get bone broth. I was trying to get bone broth. And, there was no one here that was doing it. There was 1 or 2 sources that we found, but, the time it was cooked for, etc., at the time was questionable. There are other suppliers here now. So we said we need to make our own. So we approached a chef here that worked for the main oyster bar and the restaurant there, and he said, I said, can we use your, because he was a friend, I said, can we use your kitchen to start cooking bone broth? He said, yeah, sure, and he gave us some tips. And then we started consuming it, and was like, actually, this actually tastes quite good, surprisingly. And then, because I thought it would just taste like gravy. I thought it would just be like gravy that it's very much, it's quite palatable.
Yeah.
And then that year my daughter was born as well, so that was the other trigger, because my 10-year-old daughter was born with a nut allergy that we linked to gut health. Not only gut health, but we linked on a large part or a large degree to gut health. We wanted to try and cultivate a healthy gut for my new daughter. So I wanted her to consume bone broth. So she was like our test case. If she consumes it at 8 months and no one can say anything. You still get people that got a very, very high sugar diet that drink the bone broth. It's very rare, actually. And I think we've got up to around about 4,000 clients now. And I can only think of 5 off the top of my head that just said, I can't drink it, it's disgusting.
Yeah. And just from a flavour profile, or?
From a flavour profile, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And then once you actually do some investigation into their diet, you realise that actually, they love donuts. They love pizza. Yeah. They don't love bone broth.
Yeah, well, there's always the outliers.
Yeah.
And if you dig a bit deeper, you find out that, there's some people that I've met before and they don't eat vegetables at all. And they'll say to me, I don't eat salad, I don't eat vegetables. And I'm like looking at them going, like, how are you still alive? But I guess they adapt somehow. So if you're giving someone who doesn't eat vegetables and salad bone broth, chances are it's going to be an uphill battle for you.
Absolutely. So she was consuming it. She's a little bit fussier now. She's sort of 3. She's 3.5 now, and she's just become a little bit fussy. And she's like, I don't want bone broth again. But she's been drinking it for years. So as a child, she's getting a bit bored. But she's okay. She had some this morning. But she was having it every day at one point.
Yeah. And I guess with kids as well, you could hide it in the cooking as well.
Sure.
You could boil your rice, boil your whatever it is in bone broth, so you could sort of sneak it in.
Definitely, exactly that. My 10-year-old, she's always been fussy with bone broth, and that's exactly what we've done. She actually enjoys rice more with the bone broth. We've only just started admitting it to her that it's actually in the in the rice. We didn't tell her for a little while. She said, this is really nice. What's in it? I said, well, you can't go back on that now. It's bone broth. So it's really good. We even sometimes cook the eggs in it and pastas and rice, as you say. Make stews of it. So it's you have to hide it for children.
Yeah. And for assimilation, like how you were talking about before, it's high in glycine, it's high in glutamine. We know that it's correlated to certain aspects of gut health. When you have bone broth, which is essentially a food product, when you compare it back to, well, first of all, would you class it as a food product, or would you call it a supplement or
food? But from a coaching aspect, I always, because of sort of where this question is leading, I'd always say food first. So food is what we've evolved to consume, and it comes from an animal, so I would call it food. It's more bioavailable. It has to be more bioavailable than putting powders into your body.
Yeah.
Surely.
Yeah. And from a coaching standpoint, you're going to have less hurdles coaching someone to have, a perceived food product versus you're taking these pills and powders. They're going to start thinking, well, what's this guy, is this his agenda of trying to push these powders and pills? Whereas you give them, bone broth, it's like essentially, to me, or from an outsider's point of view, it's like a food.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's still people that question the science. And they say, well,
Yeah.
actually, it's not scientifically proven that that there's normally a reason for them doing this. It's it's either from a plant-based or vegan community.
No.
And they say it just doesn't work. It's impossible. And scientifically, it has been hard to prove, because it's one of the things. Well, what's actually happening in the bone broth that's creating people to have better skin? Is collagen really absorbable? And for me, it's almost like questioning protein. Does protein actually work? Does protein give you muscles? Because collagen is just a protein, right? So food works. What you put into your body is going to have some sort of reaction.
Exactly.
So we know that the healthy skin is abundance in collagen. And some of the case studies and testimonials now, we've been doing it for 2.5 years, up to 4,000 clients, as I say, and there's just too many now. There's too many anecdotes too, and the most common reaction is people's nails, actually. The amount of people that say they can't stop their nails growing. Jeremy, who I think
Yes,
our ambassador. He now has 2 pairs of nail clippers. He said, I never owned nail clippers until I started drinking bone broth. He said, I now have one in the car and one at home. People's hair, their hair growth, thick hair. Again, Jeremy has to go to the hairdressers frequently. They say, why is your hair so thick? He has it religiously every day. And again, the amount of case studies with people's gut health, skin clearance, Marie, she had the psoriasis. She was one of our first case studies. She did the 21-day bone broth cleanse or diet. And that's where we see the biggest impact or the best results, when people do that. And people often say, well, this bone broth, it seems like a miracle cure. How has it done this for people? And not for, I wouldn't say that it's just the bone broth. The power is in the elimination.
And it comes with the lifestyle.
Exactly.
It's like, if they start consuming bone broth, then all of a sudden, hang on, I might be starting to drink more water, I might be going to the gym now. So, and it reminds me of Charles Poliquin, a strength coach. He always said, you can't wait for science to validate you on a lot of your stuff. You've got to, if you're a good clinician and you can see stuff working, especially in case studies, you can't just wait until it's scientifically proven, because you might be waiting forever for that sort of stuff to happen. But what, I guess, just talking about case studies, are there any other case studies you've had? And I guess coming back to case studies, you'd probably get more people who are interested in bone broth who do have a healthier lifestyle because they know more about it. Would that be correct in saying, or not?
It's a really good point, and that's it. So we're very lucky that quite early on we had functional medicine doctors referring people to us on a regular basis. That was really sort of the platform of how our business has grown as much as it has in the UAE. So that was really helpful for us. But you're right, most of the people, so when we first started doing all the PR here in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, most people that came to us were looking for bone broth anyway. They said, at last, we've been trying to get bone broth for years, at last a reliable source. We got all the questions. Many people come down to the kitchen and to visit, which was great because we were so passionate about it. And it's very difficult for us not to be passionate about it, because it's a business, number one, but number two, I'm giving it to my daughter. And being as anal as I am about health and what my daughter's consuming, no one can challenge me or question me the quality.
Well, you're putting your money where your mouth is.
Exactly.
It's like your flesh and blood's having it. So you're saying that it's good enough. So
people say, is it all right to give to my child? I said, it's good enough for my child, and I do this. So I can assure you it's good enough for your child. So from that aspect, yes, mainly healthy people. So it's very hard to get any testimonials or case studies from healthy people because they're already healthy. They just say, I feel good. I already felt good, and now I still feel good. So that's not a very good case study for us. But the amount of referrals had from functional medicine doctors, I'm just trying to think specifically. Some of the things is where people were being tested for certain vitamins and minerals, and even though the bone broth doesn't have these particular vitamins and minerals in it, you see that there's been an increase, and it's because their gut function, their digestive system is now working better because of the amino acids. When you've got any sort of leaky gut or intestinal permeability, these amino acids are proven to help almost seal the gut along with a healthy diet. And this is what's happening. So suddenly people are getting retested and they say, I didn't know bone broth increased your iron, or I didn't know bone broth was better for vitamin C and vitamin D. And I said, well, it's not essentially, but you're now functioning properly. Your gut's now working, and then suddenly all these food is now
to work.
Exactly. It's now more bioavailable and it's now working for you. So, there's not always an absolute direct link.
No.
But, you know, the causation, suddenly they're drinking bone broth and suddenly this is starting to work. You know, it's not a coincidence every time.
Yeah, well, you can't just treat one area of the body. You've got to treat the body as a whole in terms of health, as you know. So with another thing I heard on one of your podcasts, and I'd be keen for you to share that story, is I know there's people that are concerned with heavy metals in bone broth and think that it could, in fact, increase your heavy metals. Can you just talk us through your experience with that, and particularly your bone broth and how you tested yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it's questionable now. Even more research done that even if that's an issue with bones that are not organic, because the lots of these tests and scientific experiments, it's actually shown that they think that the heavy metal contamination was from the water. Because when they used reverse osmosis water and then conducted the same experiment, there was no heavy metals there anyway.
Okay.
Or well, there was, but it was very minimal. So I've learned that since the last podcast. But if we just go back to the raw sort of the basics of it, it's about the quality of the ingredients. So if you've got cows that are grazing on grass that's full of pesticides and they're consuming this, they store the heavy metals in their bones as do humans. You then cook the bones for 24, 36, 48 hours. The leaching of what's ever in the bones is going to go into the broth, and then you consume it. Then naturally, it's probably not going to be that great for you.
No.
So if you've got grass-fed bones from organic source, pastured, and you know they're consuming a natural diet, then you're going to have happy cows. And the bones that derive from these cows are going to be of quality. And then what's obviously leaching in there is the goodness. It's the amino acids, and then you consume that over time, and then what's ever in there is going to accumulate into your body.
Yeah.
So we had one clinic here, a couple of guys that they were really sitting on the fence with regards to bone broth. I won't give their names, but they're good guys, good functional medicine guys. And they just said, look, we've seen the tests, we've seen that there could be a potential issue with heavy metals. We're not going to start recommending this to our clients. So I said, sort of, when I look back, it was quite brave at the time. I said, well, look, I will test for heavy metals. And if I have high levels of lead or any other heavy metals, then, we could potentially link this to bone broth, because I was drinking so much at the time, because I was really benefiting from it. Because I was feeling good, I'd gone from a rehab, my joint pain had gone, I was feeling strong. And so I was just drinking, at least half a litre a day, if not more. Yeah. And I'd been doing that for a year at the time. So I said, well, that's how much I'm consuming. So if there's issues with heavy metals and I'm going to have it, I must do. And we took the test. It's one of the lowest results of heavy metals we've ever seen. So there's no trace. And
that's amazing, because living in Dubai as well, you'd assume, there's a lot of pollutants here in the air and the water. So you'd assume it's high. So, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what it was before you actually started.
That's the thing, and that works both ways, because if I did have high levels of heavy metals, I could have got that from living in Dubai for 4 years or wherever. I could have got it from anywhere. So he said, you're quite brave doing it, and he's now an advocate, and he doesn't send many referrals through, but he happily pass people on to me. We've had a few referrals from him. So in case in point, it sort of proves that, for whatever reason, my liver might be, I might detox heavy metals very well anyway, but you just can't consume that much bone broth. If it was toxic with heavy metals, I definitely would have an issue with heavy metals.
No, that's good. And so so just for I guess vegans and vegetarians, I mean, I do have a broad listening group that would follow this. What I know you had a vegan line that you used to have. Are you still producing that, or is that?
We're relaunching it in September, October. Yeah.
And so with the different profiles of what's in them, what's the difference with the vegan broth versus the?
It was a struggle. It took us a long time to release the vegan broth, because we were trying to find a source of collagen. Because that was really the main ingredient of the bone broth where everyone was benefiting. Even the amino acids, the specific amino acid profile of the collagen, that's what people were benefiting from. So there wasn't a source. We'd even find sources like vegetarian, and then actually you scrape down and
it's actually from
animal, or the one that we thought we almost used it into the vegan broth as well, but it wasn't until we read the label that we realised it come from fish. So there isn't. There is no collagen on the planet that you can get from a vegan source. It just isn't.
No.
So that was the first sort of hurdle, really. So we thought, okay, look, there is a big vegan community here. what's the next thing we can sort of look at? And iodine was one of the issues that we found that many people were, depleted in. So we used seaweed at the time. And we infused seaweed for 24 hours into cold water. Actually, it worked better. And then we cooked it with all the ingredients for 12 hours. And many people felt good from that, and we don't really have as many case studies. But again, if people would do elimination diet, they would drink the vegan broth and they'd feel good. And again, it could be a combination of two, again, because, as I say, the power is definitely in the elimination, not just the magic of the broth.
Yeah.
So what I've been doing, or what we've been doing, is we've been trying to find additional ingredients, because we've got such good results from the bone broth, and we're not getting the comparable results from the vegan broth. So we wanted to try and put more ingredients in there, and there's some real the medicinal mushrooms is the right word, is it?
It's a different type of medicine.
Yes, so there's some health benefits to certain types of mushrooms that have been quite hard to access here. But we are finding sources from different Asian markets. So when we do relaunch the vegan broth, it will have additional benefits to it, rather than just the iodine.
Lion's mane and those.
Yeah, exactly. Reishi, lion's mane. And at the moment I can only find the powders, and I don't want to use powders. I want to use the raw
the actual mushroom.
So that's the struggle. But we found one mushroom, I can't think of the name now, it escapes me, but they sell it at the Asian market, which really changes the food, the flavour of the broth and the profile, and lots of health benefits to that. So that's probably the mushroom we will use.
And just I guess we haven't actually spoken about, what does the bone broth include other than bones? What do you put in it?
It's really specific to your choice. It's subjective, but we try to link as much of the sort of the beneficial complementary ingredients to the bone broth. So for the beef broth, which we see as sort of our more sort of medicinal broth than the chicken, because many people that approach us over time, we had to keep removing ingredients, and everyone loves the taste of the chicken and they like the taste of the beef as well, but for it to fit everybody's intolerances, it was almost impossible. So what we did, we removed so many ingredients from the original bone broth, so it's almost like a FODMAP type bone broth now, apart from the celery, which I'm probably going to remove next year as well, because that seems to be coming up a little bit more. But we removed the garlic, we removed the onion. So really what's left in there now is celery, carrots, so we have some of the herbs as well.
Is apple cider vinegar in there?
Apple cider vinegar is absolutely key to bone broth, so there needs to be some sort of acidity. So if you're
to leach it from the bones,
correct, So if you're cooking your bone broth at home, it's the bones, the water, and the apple cider vinegar. That's all you need. And we actually had some clients that we've adapted the bone broth for. That's all they've asked for. I've had it, and it's not very pleasant, to be honest.
No, it's just very plain.
It is, but it does the job. And actually, it seems to come out more gelatinous, which is interesting. So I don't know whether the other ingredients sort of watered down the level of collagen, but when we cooked it with just those three ingredients, it's like thick jelly.
Because that's, from my observation from having it as well, I'd prefer the beef. But when you put it in the saucepan to heat it up, you can see the actual collagen in it versus the chicken. The chicken comes out a bit more watery, and I guess is that because of the higher collagen content in the bones in the beef?
Absolutely correct. And I think the other ingredients sort of water it down. I don't know what the science is behind that, but it definitely happens. And the one thing we have to do on a commercial level is that we have to remove the fat. Because most people don't want the fat, and then there's an argument to say that fat's good for you or fat's bad for you. Highly depends on genetics, as you know. So we've removed the fats and just get people to put in their own fats, which I do. I just include my own fats in there. So we removed the fats, and what I've noticed when I've cooked broth and kept the fats in there seems to be more collagen. So I don't know whether some of the collagen is sticking to the fat that you're removing.
That's interesting.
I don't know, but definitely when you keep the fat in there, it's more gelatinous, which would say that there's more collagen in there. Beef definitely has more collagen than the chicken, but people just love the taste of the chicken because it's an abundance of ingredients in there.
Well, it's like a chicken soup. It's just tastes nice. And can you touch on it just before you spoke about, and it's on your website as well, the 21-day challenge, but I've heard you talk about there's a 3-day bone broth fast that you do as well. Can you just talk about those two and who it's for and what are your perceived benefits from it, or what could you expect to get from it?
I think the start with the 21-day, because that was marketed in New York through Dr. Kellyanne as a 21-day bone broth diet. All the stars were doing it a few years ago, and people just seem to get the accelerated benefits of bone broth after 3 weeks, but it's on quite a strict protocol. And that protocol, so you basically go to a paleo type diet, or even similar to a ketogenic diet. And there's really no grains, there's no carbohydrates apart from the sweet potatoes, apart from the carbs you get from the sweet potatoes. That's pretty much it. And it's a 3-week elimination diet. What we do in functional medicine, we do elimination diets. This is almost exactly the same, except you include bone broth. And you have 2 what they call semi-fasting days. So you just drink bone broth for 24 hours, 2 days a week. So at 6 p.m. last night, I had my paleo meal. And at 6 p.m. tonight, I'll have my next paleo meal. And for those 24 hours in between, I can only consume bone broth.
Okay.
Which, again, the dual benefits. Because you're doing the fasting, and you're getting all the amino acids from the bone broth, which is helping to heal your gut. So this elimination is actually allowing for any inflammation to calm down anyway. Yeah. And then you've got the bone broth, which is adding anti-inflammatory as well.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, because I had John Meadows on the podcast a few podcasts ago, or a few months ago, and he talked about fasting, but also giving your body a rest from absorbing all the protein all the time. And that is probably one of the biggest benefits I've found for myself, as well as when I do fast, it just gives you your body time to heal from that. Yeah. And if you're supplying a good source of collagen and all the aminos and the electrolytes that you're getting from bone broth, it sort of makes sense.
Yeah. And I think I'm probably don't want to do myself out of business here, but I think what I found, because I do an elimination diet at least once a year, and I did the bone broth elimination diet, and I found it really difficult to fast on bone broth. Because I felt it almost triggered sort of your hunger. So when I do a 24-hour fast every Monday now anyway, so I just do a complete water fast every Monday. Yeah. And I was drinking bone broth, and I just found that bone broth seemed to trigger my hunger. Because you're starting to, even though it's a very small amount of calories, you're starting to consume calories. Yeah. Now, if you're fasting for a complete autophagy, and again, this is, you can be on, there's loads of debate about this, but if you're fasting for autophagy, then obviously the higher the deficit, the better the autophagy. So, and once you start to consume calories, is it triggering? Is it having a benefit or not? So for me, when you're fasting, just fast. And if it means that the bone broth's helping you to get through the fast, then do it. But for me personally, I found it easier without the bone broth. So I still do the bone broth 21 day, but my fasting days I just drink water.
Have nothing.
Yeah.
That makes sense though. I'm probably on the same page as you. When I do actually fast, I prefer just nothing. Obviously just water and electrolytes, but I do. Once you get into that, and I've tested myself, when I get into ketosis, then I find it's much easier to maintain that fast, and I don't get as hungry. But as soon as you push yourself out of ketosis and you're 0.3 on the scale of beta hydroxybutyrate, as soon as you're on that scale, I find it much harder to fast, because then you're burning, I guess, carbohydrates.
Yeah. Do you drink coffee?
I do.
Do you drink coffee when you fast?
I experimented with it. I think when I first got into experimenting with ketosis, I drank way too much coffee, because I started, you'd look at all like Dave Asprey and all those guys, and they talk about the bulletproof coffee, but then I was having too much, and so my adrenals were getting absolutely flogged in terms of, and it just didn't feel as good. So I found when I drank less coffee, I actually felt a lot better. Yeah. But I guess I'm probably a little bit more sensitive to caffeine than other people. But I don't. What do you find if you're fasting? Can you do you have coffee or not?
No, that's why I asked the question actually, because again, it can't be a coincidence now for me personally. One, I am fairly caffeine sensitive. I think genetically I sit right in the middle. Yeah. So 1 cup a day is definitely sufficient for me. Because I get this really clean coffee from the US, Keon Coffee, one of Ben Greenfield's coffees. Yeah. I drink, I grind my own beans, and I drink that. I have a cup every day. I normally put some olive oil in it actually, which is my own little thing. Yeah. And I don't know if it's bulletproof or not, but it seems to do the job.
Which oils do you put in?
I just put cold pressed olive oil. Because with all the benefits of having fats, but all the other fats that we talk about, and I'm not saying they're not good, but they are saturated in the main. So I just find that putting some olive oil in there, I quite enjoy it. It's something I've got used to. So that seems to do the job for me.
And you stay away from like dairy fat, or you?
After my recent, so I have regular tests, which we can go on in a moment, but after my recent tests, I found that I have a good food intolerance test here. There's only one that I would advocate, and there's nothing comes up for dairy for me.
Okay.
So which is quite nice.
Well, dairy fat just tastes better than.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
So I don't have much. So no, I cook with ghee as my secondary oil. My first is avocado. If I run out of avocado, I've always got some ghee there, so I sometimes cook with ghee, which is clarified anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, not really. I don't really. I've just where I just avoided dairy for years. I just don't have much of it now.
Yeah. That's fair enough. So getting back to the 21-day fast.
So it's 2 days of semi-fasting or just fasting, and then 5 days of paleo or paleo type diet. You drink half a litre of bone broth every day. I find most people get the benefit when they have bone broth as their first drink of the day after water, so have a half a pint or a pint of water, whatever you do, and then drink a cup of bone broth. And I think the glycine actually helps promote your digestive system anyway, so everything you consume after that is more bioavailable. And then some people like to have it around about 3 o'clock if they have an energy dip. Some people like to have it before bed. Again, the glycine helps promote sleep quality, so a lot of people like to do that.
Yeah.
And you do that for 3 weeks, and it's quite vigorous. I mean, particularly if you eat carbs anyway. I have quite a sugary diet. It's quite vigorous.
Yeah.
But the benefits, as I say, Marie was the great case study for us from day one, really, where she had psoriasis. She tried the steroids. She tried all the anti-inflammatories. That was from a knee injury, interestingly, where they just they didn't operate on her knee. They just gave her steroids, which seemed to upset her stomach, and then this created this psoriasis, which was, was not good.
So a stress response from her body is just
exactly.
Yeah.
And she worked cabin crew at the time, so she's very conscious of the way she looked in her image, and she had it all in her arms, her legs, her neck.
Yeah.
And she had just given up hope. And she was borderline sort of depressed, really. And she came to see us, and I said, "Look, I'm not going to charge you for the bone broth. I just want to see if it works, because this is quite a strong case." And literally, she did a video. It's on our website, a daily video. And then day 18, it was just gone.
Yeah.
And then day 21, she just looked like a different person. Obviously, she was getting out in the sun a little bit more. She was feeling more confident as it started to fade. So again, there's an accumulation of things, but I believe just that power of elimination, the bone broth, getting out, get your vitamin D.
Yeah.
Accumulation of all this is what really helped.
And I'm tipping if you're doing the bone broth fast, most people a side product would be weight loss, because you're by nature you're in a calorie deficit as to what you would have been already eating. So and because you see a lot of people, some people think they equate drinking bone broth to losing weight, but it's like you were speaking about just before. It's like everything falls into place. You do a fast, you're having less calories, you're going to lose weight. Yeah,
I've lost customers. They've contacted me, said, "Does bone broth help me lose weight? Or will bone broth make me lose weight?" No.
Yeah.
They said, I've read that bone broth is a weight loss product. I said, there's no such thing. Calorie deficit is your weight loss. Yeah. And bone broth can assist in weight loss, because it can help you have that as a meal replacement if you choose to. It can, as we know, it can help you help you digest food better. But yeah, as you say, it's calorie deficit. Bone broth is not going to, if you've got a crap diet and you're drinking bone broth, it's not going to help.
No, exactly. The thing that I find as well, if I'm not actually technically doing a fast, or I'll just do like some sort of intermittent fast, I actually find that when I have the beef bone broth in the morning, that it does actually get me through till the 16-hour mark or the 18-hour mark. And so that's just my personal observation, and I think Olivia would probably attest to that as well. Is on the days that she is going to intermittent fast, she'll have the bone broth in the morning, first thing in the morning, and it kind of, I think it's just the liquids and everything else, it just kind of fills her up and fills me up as well.
Yep.
But I'm not sure if other people find that as well, or...
I think most people do so. I think I'm just quite a unique... considering I'm the person that sells it, it's not really working in my favour, but I just find it easier to fast without bone broth. Yeah. And back to the coffee, what I found is I was doing my 24-hour fast, and I was drinking my clean coffee in the morning. And I'd feel good. I'd get through it. It's no problem. Wake up on a Tuesday morning, go to the gym. Felt good when I woke up. Was in the gym, was not quite as strong as I normally am. I guess it's a lack of calories that I've consumed the day previous. And then I started to remove coffee from my, and I'm probably 6 weeks into that now. And on a Tuesday morning, I just feel amazing. I wake up, the fasting seems to have done its job. I eat in the evening anyway, but obviously I don't have any coffee that day. And then, Tuesday morning I just feel good every time when I don't have the coffee the day before, which as a functional medicine health coach, I'd say probably should think about giving up coffee.
Yeah, well, naturally, you get a bit of sunlight on your face and that sort of stuff. It's your body will naturally produce cortisol, and you don't have to rely on the cup of coffee to get you stimulated in the morning.
Yeah.
So just shifting gears into your health coaching side of your business, can you tell us, obviously, the evolution of how you got there, but what sort of stuff do you work on with your clients, and what are the types of clients that you have?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite an obvious crossover with the Clean Living Company and the bone broth. So that's really what inspired me to do the coaching. In fact, Marie was the person who inspired me to do the coaching, because I didn't want to say it at the time, and the reason why I said have the bone broth and do this diet is because it's quite obvious to me it was going to work, or at least have some benefit. Not to that degree. I didn't think she was going to clear up in 3 weeks. I thought it might take 3 months or 6 months, but not 3 weeks. It was amazing, the results.
Yeah.
But once I saw the results, and I, intuitively felt that she was going to get those results, I thought I need to do something with this, because she's been getting some very bad advice for almost 2 years, and it's got worse. I gave her some advice in 3 weeks. I thought, I feel I know what I'm talking about now, but I need some sort of certification or accreditation to be able to go out and offer that to people and and work with people. So Dr. Shafali here, the functional medicine doctor, integrative doctor, I approached her and said, what can I do? So I want to be able to do this. I can see it works. And she said, contact the International Functional Medicine Association in the US, and they have different courses that you can take. So I took their coaching course, and luckily for me, they really focused on functional medicine at the time. Now they focus more on the coaching element, so it's less technical now. So we sort of, the last 3 months, we focused on all the coaching and how to coach people and all the skills around that. But for 9 months, it's completely about functional medicine, and they've now stopped doing that. It's more focused on coaching.
Yeah,
so
that was actually my next question: is do they actually delve into the how to emotionally connect with someone and talk them through? Because a lot of times you can have all the answers in terms of do X, Y, Z, but unless they're actually hearing what you're saying and going to be compliant. So I mean, as a coach, you need to have all those skills. You need to know how to do it, but you also need to know how to communicate that as well.
Yeah, sure. I think in the States at the moment, you have I think there's now 1 million functional medicine doctors now worldwide, and most of them are in the States. And what they found is where the functional medicine doctors have become so busy, they can't allocate the time that's required to help someone get through from to recover. So when they see them, it's not rushed like you would with a traditional doctor, but they might have 30 minutes. But then what they're telling them to do, most people know what to do. So, okay, this is the issue, this is the root cause, now go away and do it. Okay, goodbye. And then they don't do it.
No.
So that's when they assign a functional medicine coach. That's the basis of it in the US.
Yeah.
So they then get assigned a functional medicine coach who is then based in the same surgery or practitioner as the doctor, and they work together. So they see the coach once a week or sometimes twice a week, and they'll go back and see the doctor 6 weeks later. And then they'll see the benefits.
Well, that makes sense.
Together. It just makes sense. Yeah.
Because there needs to be some level of accountability for people. If you've had a bad lifestyle for 20 years, if you walk in and see a doctor one day and he tells you to do this, you walk out, you go back to your old habits. So
it sounds horrible. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, it sounds hard.
It'll make you well. I'm not doing it.
Big Mac tastes better than a salad.
Yeah, and then they come back. So I did it. But you've had no change. You've been doing it for 6 weeks. No, I definitely did it. So more often than not, they tried, but they didn't. And it's that, and as you say, it's the key word with coaching is accountability. It's like, as a trainer, you see it from a different aspect. But when it comes to the functional medicine side of things, then it is accountability. It's having someone to rely to an ally to bounce off. They'll message me and say, I had this for dinner. Is it okay for me to eat this? Or I'm going to take this supplement. What do you think? And it's just nice to get some reassurance. And some clients, I coached them over a year ago, they still message me at least once a week, if not more. I say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and is it okay? But it's fine. It's good to be able to help people. That's why I started it. And I think just to go back to the original question, I think the main thing that I'm seeing people for really is energy. People seem to have a real, seem to be energy. They really lack energy. When I do a questionnaire profile with them, and it marks from 1 to 10 being optimal, 1 being the lowest, and energy always comes back middle or low. And you really start to break down their lifestyle. I do a food and lifestyle journal with them, which tells them what time they get up in the morning, everything they consume during the day. That questionnaire focuses quite a lot on phytonutrients, interestingly, just to get them to mark the different colours of vegetables they've been consuming during the day, because more often than not it's green and that's it, which is okay. But how many times they eat, if they've exercised, do they do any relaxation exercise, do they meditate, mindfulness, what time do they go to bed? And generally I try to do it over 7 days. Some people find that a bit of a pain to do, so I do a 3 and a 5 day, but I like people to do the 7 days. If they do a 5 day, definitely include the weekend, because that's when people go off the rails. They tend to go off the rails. And you learn so much from that, and once you start working backwards from that, there's so much you can fix.
And so what, just if you could generalize, I know it's hard to generalize because essentially you're a practitioner, you see people and you try and fix what the individuals bring to the table, but if you could have a silver bullet and you had, just say you had 10 people come in to see you, they all complained of, low energy in the morning, trouble falling asleep at night, hungry for bad food, what's I guess your go-to strategy, and where would you start with someone like that?
I think what I'm going to say. I think it's what our parents have been saying to us forever. Eat more vegetables. It really is, and I don't really advocate any one diet. I don't really, that's not what we do. But 9 times out of 10 people just don't eat enough vegetables, and when they do, it's the variation. So I have broccoli every night. Okay, it's almost like a condiment. You've got loads of meat, loads of potatoes, and there's a little bit of veg there. So I say to people, at least try and get 50% of your plate covered in as many different coloured vegetables as possible. And we'll have that as a starting point, and then we'll see how we go from there. And inevitably after 4 to 6 weeks, they're feeling better, a bit more energy, sleeping better. Trying just to get them to avoid eating late at night. People that suffer from any sort of sleep issues, just say, give yourself 2 hours. And that 2 hours, that's generally the time, again, you know a lot more about this than I, but that's the 2 hours when people really start consuming the rubbish. That's
100%.
2 hours before bed.
100%.
So if you leave that window open and say, actually, what you've eaten now, don't eat again. Try not to drink, because if you need to get up in the night to go to the toilet, don't drink the water, even that, And again, they tend to sleep better.
Because you can always make the hard decisions in the morning. It's like, I'm going to be healthy, I'm going to do this. But it's like when you're on the couch, you're watching Netflix and you're tired, and it's at that time of the day that you reach for the chocolate bar or the popcorn or whatever the poison is that you're going to have. And it reminds me of Charles Pollock, and I spoke about him before. He was a big proponent of running food panels and intolerance testing. This is many years ago now, and he said he'd test like bodybuilders and bikini competitors, and the biggest intolerances that they'd come back was chicken and broccoli, because literally all they'd eat was chicken and broccoli for like 10 years. Get their body into this. But it's like, man, you just keep giving the body the same thing every day. It's like you can build up some sort of level of intolerance in the foods that you have.
Naturally,
and what types of people do you work with? I know it's hard to generalize, but what, just with your specific health coaching?
It seems to have really evolved into people that spend most of their time looking after others but forget to look after themselves. So 80% of mums, good mums, spend all their time focusing on the children, have forgotten to go to the gym or can't find the time to go to the gym. Starting to sort of help doctors as well now, which is interesting, because again, they understand how to look after other people, but they're so good at their job they forget to look after themselves. My oldest daughter's a nurse. She was pretty similar as well. She's now really on track and followed what I do. And it's funny when you have someone that's been to university, graduates, got all the knowledge about health, and say, well, what do I do now? What do I eat every day? And it's amazing. They've been through that, but they've still not been advised on diet and nutrition. And she's amazing. She's very good at what she does, but she doesn't or didn't understand diet and nutrition until I started spending time with her. And doing elimination diets for her. Now she feels so much better. And that's that can be that. I don't like to generalize, but a lot of the health profession are like that, where they're just so focused on helping other people to fix their issues and ailments that they forget to look after themselves.
And then integrating, obviously, with functional medicine, it's a lot about what you eat and you consume, but on the other side of the scope is exercise and lifestyle. What's your approach with a general population person, not necessarily looking to be 10% body fat, but someone who comes to you and says, I want to look better, I want to feel better about myself? What's your exercise protocol? How do you recommend that? Do you refer out, or do you program yourself, or?
I try not to. I'm not a PT. and there's many PTs that should be PTs, but I'm not a PT. And I've been around the gym all my life pretty much, and I know what works for me, but it doesn't mean what works for me is going to work for others. So the absolute basics I always fall back to is movement. And you've got your activity trackers now. You can see how much you move. And I just like to see people moving. I don't like just to focus it on steps. It's okay, but I like to see a bit more than just 10,000 steps. And the key is, and again, this is sort of more your platform really, but you see people go to the gym in the mornings, like I do. I train hard in the mornings, and then I'd go and sit in an office all day. And then go home, drive home, sit down, drive home, get home, sit down, eat dinner, sit down, watch Netflix, go to bed. So something doesn't seem right.
So you can be highly sedentary even if you're like, a super fit person in the gym, but it's your activity levels are through the floor.
It doesn't. And arguably, I would never say to someone, stop going to the gym in the morning.
No,
because you sit around all day. All right, then. I was not going to do anything. Obviously, we wouldn't recommend or advocate that, but you do need to think about it. And for me, because of the injuries that I had, I noticed that once I started getting into doing deadlifts, which by the way, that's what saved my back, was actually doing deadlifts properly. I then would go and sit down in the office all day, and then I'd have a bad back at night, and I thought, it's the deadlifts. But it's not. It's the deadlifts followed by the lack of movement. Then I would then start to learn to sort of hack my environment, have a sort of more ergonomic type setup. And then I'd have like this. I mean, even when you came in to see me today, you see I'm standing up. I won't. We're sitting down now, but I probably won't sit down again today until I go home. And I just like to keep moving. I've moved to this office now, but I was in my office previously. I had a trampoline. So I just say because I'd eat probably 4 meals a day, so before I'd eat I'd spend 10 minutes on the trampoline. I just had to keep moving. I have this stool where you sit on it, but it's half standing, half seated.
I know the one. It's kind of kneeling on it, or
no, it's called I think it's called a mogo maybe, and it's like on a pole. And then you sit in it like a saddle. It's a bit more comfortable in the saddle. And then you sit in it, and it's not really activating your core, but you can't relax so much. And it keeps you. And the thing is, because it is quite comfortable, but it's not like sitting on a sofa, so you'll move around.
There's no chance you'll fall asleep on it. You might be on the floor.
Definitely not. I've seen a few people collapse on it, but they're not hard to keep up. So that really helped me. The trampoline, and just keep moving. And once I kept moving during the day, suddenly I wasn't getting back pain anymore. It's just to avoid a sedentary lifestyle. We've seen the studies now. We know you've seen some sedentary lifestyles is just as bad as smoking on your health. The blue zones, they're all everything they do is about being outside. It's about moving all day. They're either working on farms or they're working on building sites. You see all these people that were in the blue zones that get to be centenarians and beyond. You ask them what they did for a living. They didn't sit in an office all day. I worked on a building site. I worked on a farm.
It's funny you mentioned that, because Kelly Starrett, the guy who wrote Becoming a Supple Leopard, he's a big proponent of standing up, and he says most of the issues and pathologies become when kids start going to school. So like when you see a newborn baby, they can grab their legs and they can spin every direction, and then it's once they introduce them to chairs and sitting down for 6 hours a day or 4 hours a day, that becomes the issue for them. Do you sort of strict with your kids as well? Pushing.
I try. My 3-year-old, she goes to a nursery here called Homegrown Nursery. Fantastic. They really advocate sort of this sort of spiritual type days where they do yoga even at 3 years old, and they all sit cross-legged. They don't wear shoes. They go out into the garden. So I love that for her. My 10-year-old. It's harder for her. I mean, she dances every day. She enjoys that. She's always moving. But if I'd have known now what I knew back then she would probably be more flexible. She's not as flexible as what she should be. I think it's quite genetic as well, because my hamstrings are ridiculously tight. But if I would have known now if I'd have known then what I know now, then I wouldn't have got her sitting down all the time.
Which is she's still very young though. So.
And we'll work with her, but she's so tight, and again, I know that's partly my fault, just genetics, but I mean, obviously I give my she's almost 11 now. It's very hard, she's getting close to that teenage type time, and they become quite rebellious. You say to them, do this. Well, why? So it will really help you. So, so if you drink bone broth, you'll stay young forever. At 10, you think you're going to stay young forever anyway. So, but she's very good. If she goes to a party and all the friends are eating McDonald's, she won't consume it. She'll call me and say, "Daddy, they're eating McDonald's. What do you think?" And we won't say no. So if you feel you want to eat it, then you can eat it. But I'm just proud that you called me to ask. But I'm not going to stop you from eating it. And then she'll come back, inevitably she won't have anything. Or she'll go, "Well, I did have the milkshake," and then she'll have the runs for 5 days and won't eat it.
And so just going back to what you said before about deadlifts, and I think you did a post on social media about your journey from being injured and having chronic back pain and actually getting reintroduced to deadlifts and squats and those types of movements. Who put you, I guess, or what made you decide to go back and try that again?
Yeah, I'm highly competitive, which has worked against me. I think that's probably why I got most of my injuries, to be honest, just because I just didn't know when to stop. And I saw there's a bit of a, that sort of CrossFit sort of movement here where I'd go to the gym, the warehouse gym, when it first opened, and everyone's there lifting big, heavy weights. I thought, I want to do that. I can do that. And then where I've always been sort of more hypertrophy, just bodybuilding type training, I thought I want to be strong. And then I tried a few people. There's a guy from Sweden who used to work at the warehouse. He got me some of the basics, and he helped me give the confidence to deadlift, because I was told by a couple of people in the UK, never deadlift. Now you've had your back done. I had an epidural in my back, which was basically a side effect of having the knee operation, because everything was lopsided. And when I went back training so hard on one leg, on the bad leg, where I was in one-legged, leg press and hamstring curls and everything on this side, my back was just like, what's going on? And that's what caused the back issue. I then had an epidural, and people said to me, just don't ever do deadlifts. And I went back, I did a deadlift, my back went, I was like, I can't do deadlifts. And it went like that. And then a few personal trainers said to me, you should go and see a guy called Chris Wong, who trains at the warehouse, and he's I think he's number 3 in Great Britain for his weight category for powerlifting. And I went to see him, and he just changed my whole philosophy on training, where for me, it's obvious when you look back, but for me it was always just go hard, and then you'll be stronger. Where he said, well, actually no, it's not that. He said, let's work on your technique. And I'd go to the gym, and suddenly I'm going to the gym and I'm just not lifting any weight at all. It might be 50% body weight or something ridiculous. I'm lifting that weight, and he said, well, you can't go up until your technique's better. And we just focused on that. Squats was the real thing for me, because of the knee and the back, being in that low position in squats, the confidence was gone. And actually at one point, even with Chris, not his fault, definitely not his fault, my fault. At one point I went down to the squat and my back went. And that was the last time my back went, actually. I was in the lower part of a squat, and where I let go. So I went down as low as I could. I sort of relaxed, back went, and that was... So I completely lost it. Psychologically, I lost it. So he just helped build me up over the years, really. And now, sort of 200% plus body weight. Really, the worst thing for me during sort of the rehab time would be do 1 rep max. So if someone would say to me, what's your 1 rep max?
So that's that competitive edge coming back in.
So I had to say, well, who cares? There's no benefit to me having
you can just calculate percentages based off what a 5 rep max is or what a 10 rep. So you don't have to actually do the
okay. I've actually
the 1
heard
rep.
That. Maybe you can help me with that.
So you can just calculate it and tell them what it is.
Okay. I'll speak to you after you do it. So really for squats, I've not really even attempted a 1 rep max. I need to have a good sort of 3 or 4 reps left in there before with squats. I found that sumo deadlift has really helped open my hips, and that's really helped me a lot to strengthen my glutes and everything else. So that even more so than traditional deadlifts. I do both, but the sumo is really where I've got my strength, and that's it's almost like a stretch as well. So that's been amazingly beneficial for me. And now, literally the last few weeks, I've just got so much more confident in just lifting weights, and I've been doing it all my life, which is ridiculous.
No, but it's the type of thing people don't realise how much. Especially the barbell lifts is a skill, and it's like you can do it for, you think it's just a simple up and down exercise, but you can be doing it for 15-20 years and you're still like honing little things in your technique. And I'm sure you can attest with Chris, but any of the powerlifters, especially in Dubai, the guys that I know here, they're incredibly detailed and complex lifts. It's not just up and down, this basic thing. And I think I was similar to you. I had not a bit of a background, never never was like seriously into bodybuilding, but I think everyone who starts to get into weights, they have some sort of like bodybuilding, you know, reps and sets and all that sort of stuff. And then you try and apply that same methodology to strength training, and it's like completely different. And that's when you get hurt. And I was probably the same. And then I probably about 7-8 years ago, I saw a strength coach, and he just ironed out a couple of techniques, and literally I've never had a sore back since. And it's like, you know, I spend a lot of time like lifting heavy weights, and it's I've never actually felt healthier. Versus when I was in my 20s, I was like, you know, always hobbled, I had a sore back, and I was doing something wrong. And I think it was just, you know, applying different principles to strength training. Just, it's never going to work. But it's an area that I love as well.
Of course. I just can't advocate it enough. Just to get someone who's technical, that understands these barbell movements, and then just do them. Don't avoid them. You know, they're not scary. I think I actually don't mind CrossFit. Now I'm in a position where I can do it. But obviously the danger to CrossFit is where you do these big barbell movements, but because you're doing it in a room of a group activity and there's no one really focused on your technique, that's obviously when it can become a little bit dangerous, particularly if you've got any injuries previously. True.
And that's the thing, it's like in a group setting, if you don't have your basics knotted down, that's when CrossFit's dangerous. But if you go in there with a good solid understanding of proficiency of movement, and you know your structural limitations, and you know mobility requirements of certain depths of squats, when someone says to you, go down to this depth, and you know you can't get there, it's like, well, you know, you're not in a group scenario, it's never going to work. But I think CrossFit, in terms of in the right hands, I think it's awesome in terms of, you know, getting people to work at capacity and then getting them to lift something heavy at the same time. It's like, it's a different beast.
Yeah, I enjoy it now, but I probably do it for 6 weeks once a year. Just put myself through it and say, look, I got through it again. I'm not as old as I should be. It's worked massively for me, and I just couldn't advocate it more. And now, actually, as I say, the last few weeks, I'm stronger than just things like bench press and stuff like that. I'm stronger than what I was when I was in my 20s. So, I'm in a good place.
Yeah, awesome. So being successful at what you have done, who do you have any mentors, whether it's business or from a health coach perspective? You mentioned Shefali before. Is there someone from a business point of view, but also from a practitioner level, that you sort of look up to? And, you know, when you don't know what to do you go turn to this person?
I say from a business perspective, not specifically, no. Dr. Shefali, I admire what she's done, and she's been a real aspiration for me, inspiration, for me. I think just this whole journey has been quite amazing, and my philosophy even to functional medicine has changed, or functional medicine coaching has changed over the last sort of 6 weeks or so. So we're now looking at another venture, and Ben Greenfield, amazing. I'm actually going to do a consultation with him.
Nice.
You can pay a bit of money, too much money. And do a consultation.
He's not cheap.
He's not cheap, no, but there's good reason for that. So when I relocate, I'm going to do a call with him, which I've started to build up to now. I think his knowledge is amazing. What he does. He's living proof that it works. And people question. I mean, he does some bizarre stuff.
He does. It's not always about health for him. He's certainly looking for the hidden gems of performance and biohacking.
Yes, and getting stem cells injected into places I just couldn't imagine. But so that's down to him. So if he does experimenting, I will learn from his experiments. So he's a big one for me. I think, like anything, I will, depending on what my next venture or next objective or next goal is, then I will hire a coach. The one thing I learned through the training of being a coach is that everybody needs a coach. Whether it's business coaching, whether it's health, whether it's PTs, or I say all the best athletes in the world, they have coaches every single day. So they are the best at what they do, and they still need guidance and coaching. So it's definitely going to benefit us, right? So so I try to use coaches in many different aspects of life as possible. And the next sort of business venture we're doing now, it's the functional medicine, but it's going to be a business aligned with the functional medicine coaching. And what I accepted, and as I explained to you, is that it's almost like the coaching's a side menu. So you'll go and see a functional medicine doctor or a normal doctor, and they'll say, right, okay, maybe get yourself a coach. Whereas, lifestyle should be the first part. So, it's preventative. So for me now, I'm starting to rethink about the coaching as being the first line of defence, not the side menu. And we're really going to start pushing on that now. So there's a new business that's being created that my functional medicine coaching is going to be moved over to. Conscious health. That's what we're calling it, and we're starting to speak to health ministers here, and we're really going to try and make this a global business.
Awesome.
And it's to be more confident in what we're doing, because as a coach, so you're sort of sitting around the side and say, come and see me, we can help you do this. Actually, no, do this.
Put your hand
do this
up.
First. Let's make this the front line of defence. Everybody can do this. We've become quite. Trying to find a diplomatic way to articulate this, but we've become quite. But I won't. We've become quite weak in, say, oh, there's something wrong with me, I must go to the doctor. Oh, what's this? And actually, we can look after ourselves, but prevent it. Don't wait for the sickness to come. Let's just, prevention, is better than the cure. We know that. But it's just making that more obvious to people, I think, and more case studies and really putting it out there with confidence. And that's what we want to do.
Yeah, and with your, just coming back, so where did you get your confidence in the business side of things just to execute? So obviously the last 2 years, I think it's 2 years you've had Clean Living Co?
2.5 years, yeah.
2.5, yeah. To take it from its infancy to where it is now, like where... Did you have a background in business before you started this, or?
Yes, the Clean Living Company isn't my income. It's not what pays the bills.
Okay.
And I sit on the board of a large plantation business, actually. So
okay.
That sounds ominous, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So we actually grow a tree called the Aquilaria tree, which produces the oud oil, which goes into fragrances here, which they use massively in the Middle East. So that smell you get when you go through the malls, that's oud oil. So I've been growing those trees for 10, 11 years. I'm sitting on the board of the business that does Cambodia, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and that's really sort of given me the platform to look at other things that I have more of a passion for, because I don't have a passion for growing trees. Even though it's
no.
So even though I did initially, because I actually planted trees for my daughter, my 10-year-old, that's how I got into it. Now she grows, the trees grow, it's good for the environment, profit goes to orphanages. So I am passionate about it, but my real passion is health.
Yes.
So that gave me the platform and the leverage to be able to do what I'm doing. And that's why everything I'm doing now is out of passion first, before business, or before income. And you hear it all the time, and I'm not there yet, but you hear it all the time from all the great entrepreneurs, and they said, go with your passion first. Actually, if you can do that, then it's 9 times out of 10, it's where the successful strive from.
So just circling back to Ben Greenfield, when you get on the online call with him, I'm interested to know what does Dean want to know from Ben?
Okay. Well, I am I get my functional test done regularly. I have a full medical done every 18 months. The last one we did around about 3 months ago with Shafali, and pretty much everything was in range. There's a couple of things that were slightly out of range. If I wasn't into health and wellness, then it would be okay, because we want to try and bring them down or bring them in line. So he asked to see those before you get on the call. So he wants to see what's going on with your functional tests. And I want to know what he's doing. He's done so many experiments this year, different things that some people might be a bit anti or against, but he's injecting himself with all sorts of different things. I want to know what's worked. It's about longevity. I'm 44 now. You see all these people, they want to live to 180 and things like that. It's ridiculous, but I do want to. Even George, my business partner, his goal, he said, I want to live till I'm 100, and I want to be a healthy 99-year-old, and we both think the same. And when you have kids, you start to think more like that. I now have a very young daughter who's 3, and I want to be around to see her grandchildren. So what do I need to do that? And I want to talk about my knee injury. I have provisionally booked to go to Bangkok for a place that I know to have stem cells done.
Okay.
So
for the knee, or
for the knee, and it's sort of some knock-on effects. So my ankle, sometimes it flares up a little bit. When I say flares up, I get a bit of ankle pain. But you have to remember that I don't have an ACL, so my knee doesn't function properly. So with all the training that I do, something has got to give a little bit. So even though I'm confident to do it, has a little bit of a knock-on effect. So I probably want to try some stem cells in my ankle. Sometimes I think, it's the certain joints are probably not the best design when you're doing all this lifting. So sometimes my shoulder and lat feels a bit funny. So maybe get some done there as well. So I want to ask about his experience, because he's literally, I think he's now had more stem cells injected in more places than anybody else on the planet. So there's certain places I'm just not going to do what he's done. I'm not going to do that. But I want to know what his feedback is and how he felt, the recovery time. And sit and just see what else he's doing, really. Just get some feedback and tell him that these are my goals, these are my aspirations. What would you recommend? Everything that he says, I'm not going to say, I'm going to do that. I'll take him with the knowledge that I've got, and then, I'm sure it'll be an educational call. Yeah.
Have you ever followed Dr. Peter Attia's stuff on the Drive? He's probably less of a gunslinger than Ben Greenfield, but he comes from a medical background, so he's I don't think he was a cardiologist. He was a doctor anyway for many years, and he's sort of come full circle, and he's into that sort of functional medical practitioner level, but he's got a really good podcast as well. So he talks a lot about all that sort of stuff. And I noticed you're wearing is that Aura ring? Yeah. Can you? I'm just super interested for myself. What do you what have you found since wearing it?
Firstly, I'm so happy I got it. I always thought my sleep was okay, but not great. I've always woke up really early. And you just tend to learn so much about yourself because everything's recorded, so you can look back and you can make notes in there. You can see what actually works, because like anything, if you don't record it, then it just happened and you don't know why. And the last 4 weeks, sort of contradicting what I'm going to say now, because the last 4 weeks my sleep hasn't been as good, but it's because I'm moving around. I've just moved to an apartment, all my stuff's on a boat somewhere, relocating the family to Europe, so my head's not quite where it was. But up until this time, and even now I've managed to adapt to this because I've worked out what's not working for me. So the Aura Ring, the app that's assigned to the Aura Ring, it says to start going to bed at between 8:45 and 9:45, because it's seen how restless I'm getting around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, which is the adrenaline and the stress of what's going on. Even though I don't feel stress, subconsciously I'm relocating my family. So I am. So it's picked up on that. It's picked up that my heart rate is not lowering until closer to the end of the night, where it should be at the beginning or the middle of the night. And the detail and the accuracy is scary. You're just wearing this on your finger, and it's just unbelievable, the feedback you're getting. So I've now started to go to bed before 9:45. Went to bed at 9 o'clock last night. Had a little bit of a restless night towards the end, but my sleep score was high again because I've got the amount of hours that was required, and more importantly, the deep sleep and the REM sleep was at the percentage it should be. So it measures all this. Prior to that, it was I've always been saying to people to set your circadian rhythm. You need to get outside and be outside, and I was going outside every morning for 20-30 minutes doing my stretches and exercises there before I'd go into the gym. Wasn't helping my sleep at all. I thought it was until I used the Aura Ring. It wasn't helping my sleep at all. I play golf. And I noticed every time I play golf that my deep sleep was just on point.
Oh wow!
And it was the amount of time that I was spending outside. So 20 minutes wasn't cutting it.
But it could be the de-stress from just playing and being with your mates and
social activity, just being out there, and But again, when I'd play for about 9 holes, so I play for about 2 hours. Sometimes worse. And I'd come in, and then my sleep was a bit better. And then I went and played 18 holes, which I hadn't done for a long time, and my sleep was even deeper and even longer.
That's so good.
And again, that 80 to 90% of people are vitamin D deficient here in the UAE, maybe globally, but I'm focusing more here. And I think the quality of the sun that we get is not the best because of the potential pollution and what have you. So the different UV rays and what have you. So, and it's not just that; it's about the time of day. So, the vitamin D it's optimum between 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock, and it's too hot here. Most people don't get outside at that time. So it's only if you're a bit of a nutcase and you're going out playing golf, which I have been, that you start to absorb that vitamin D, I think. And that, again, seems to have helped my sleep. So I'm rabbit holing here. So
I'm very interested in that.
Yeah, so all these things that, I've made these notes and I've looked back and seen what helps, and it is being outside. Everybody says that being outside in nature or just getting outside as much as possible, it definitely helps. If I do fall off the wagon, which is different to a lot of people's falling off the wagon, but if I do have some popcorn at 9 o'clock at night, I don't sleep as well. Even though I feel I do, I don't sleep as well. If I go out for dinner and have a glass of wine, my deep sleep shot to pieces. I'm still sleeping for the 6, 7, 8 hours or whatever. Rarely 8, where you got a 3-year-old, but or 7 hours. But you see my sleep quality. There's no deep sleep there at all. It's all light and REM sleep. There's no deep sleep. So whether we like it or not, some people think, I have a drink before bed because it helps us sleep. It definitely doesn't. I'm all for biochemical individuality, but drinking alcohol before bed is definitely going to affect your sleep quality.
Yeah. It comes back to what you measure gets managed, but I think with all these health trackers, Oura Ring's probably the gold standard, or probably the best, but even at the cheaper level, Fitbit or whatever, it just makes people aware of, I've sat down for the whole day and the thing might buzz on your wrist, and it gives you that insight. But I think the Oura Ring's sort of taken it to the next level with the insights that you get from the sleep. But also I didn't know that it had suggestions for you as well in terms of go to bed at this time. It
will set up the suggestions for you, based on and it also look at your heart rate variability, which is a key one for your sympathetic nervous system. So it will look at your heart rate variability and say, actually today I probably wouldn't train very hard. So try a sort of a medium training day, low weights or very small cardio sort of exercise. Like this morning, because I had managed to get to bed early, it said train hard today, to go for it. So I did go for it. And sometimes, it's just technology. It's really helpful. But some days you say, I feel good today, so I'm going to train hard. But every now and then you just say, okay, I've been training hard for 3 days. The ring is not happy. So, listen to your body.
And then when you're training, do you take it off, or you?
I was training with it, but you can just you can put it, because it is an activity tracker, but that's not what it's designed for. It's designed for sleep, and it's designed for measuring your heart rate during meditation, mindfulness practices. So it does all that. So when I train, I just take it off now. More often than not.
Because I've heard Dr. Peter Attia, the guy I was talking about before, he's deadlifted with a couple of times and he's cracked a few of them. So I don't think you can pull your 1RMs with your Oura Ring on you.
So I just take it off, and you can just manually put in there. I did an hour of strength training. Was it low, medium, or high intensity? Okay. It sort of explains the definition for each one. So I just put that in, and again, it's a way to track back.
So just talking on mindfulness, you just briefly mentioned it just before, from your health coaching and what you'd recommend, but also personally what you do. What's your practices, and what's your recommendation for?
In all honesty, I've fallen off the wagon a little bit since I've been moving around. I had a really good sort of I'd do 10 minutes every morning to get going for the day, and then I'd sometimes meditate in the evening. I'd normally end up just falling asleep, but I try to do that as well. For my clients, if they are struggling with sleep, I try and get them to do some sort of meditation or mindfulness practice before they go to sleep, just to calm the mind. What I've noticed, like anything like this, is that it's an accumulative effect. So you meditate once, nothing happened. But if you do it over every day religiously, over time, then you start to really see the benefits, and you just feel more calm. That's, for me personally, I just feel more calm. And it's not like I'm sort of bouncing off the walls, but it just everyday activity just feels a little bit more easier to deal with. And when you do have any stresses, which we all do, they're just easier to handle. It
would put you more in that parasympathetic rest digest state, as being overstimulated with phones, emails, work calls. You're running a business, you've got a family, you've got a kid, like all these things of life. They're sympathetic dominant. So doing practices like that is going to obviously help reset and put you into that space. Are there any apps or starting points for people if you'd recommend for your clients if you're starting down that path?
So I really liked for starting out, every Headspace is a very common one, and people use that. I think that's a helpful one. There's one called Buddhify, which is really good for me because it lets you select the environment that you're in. So it might say, actually, as you mentioned, have a break from technology. So it would be narrating to you sort of what you're going through while you're having the break from technology. If you can't sleep, you can put one on that helps you go back to sleep. There was one of the programs, and that was probably one of the most helpful sort of narrated meditations I've done, because it gets you to look for thoughts, which is really interesting. So it said, okay, so if you can't sleep, it's because you've got thoughts in your mind. So when you get that thought, they relate it to hit whack a mole. Remember the fair where you whack the mole? They relate it to that. We call it whack a thought. And every time you get a thought, just say, okay, I've got that thought, just call it thought, and then pass it through. So, okay, I've thought of that. I'm just thinking I can't sleep. Okay, you can't sleep, next. And then you do this, and then suddenly you've got no thoughts left. And it's a really interesting way of meditating. And when you're looking for the thought, you can't find any. But when you don't want to think about stuff, the mind goes crazy. And that's been really helpful for me personally,
Yeah. Oh, that's good. All right, so we're sort of getting towards the end of the interview now. Just before I get into the last few questions, what's plans for yourself and for your company in the next sort of 6-12 months?
Sure. So we're opening in London this month. When I say we, the Clean Living Company. My business partner George is already based there. But we're going to launch first with our new supplement, which is the keto collagen supplement. So it's basically collagen with MCT powder.
Okay.
So we're going to launch that. That's ready. That's done. That's signed off.
And still on the same branding?
Still on the same branding. It's the Clean Living Company's own collagen powder. Again, that's taken so long to bring to market because, again, of how anal we are about the products and ingredients we put into the product. And you start to learn a bit about the supplement market, and it's quite, it's just such a minefield. It's such a big business, multi-billion-dollar business now.
There's a lot of good products, but there's probably more bad products out there than
without it. And the people we're working with, initially, we said to them, okay, so you've made this product, this is great. And they said, okay, it's going to cost you X. We said, okay. And then I said, could you just send me the full profile? I need to know every single ingredient that's in it. I said, well, I can't use that ingredient. And that's a dairy product. He said, yeah, but it's a carrier. You have to put it in there. You don't need to disclose it. I said, this is unbelievable. I said, there's no way that I can give that product to my clients. No way. He said, well, if you're gonna put that and remove this and go for this option, it's going to cost you double. I said, okay, we'll pay double because I want to give that to my 3-year-old. And that's the philosophy. So it worries me to think that how many, because you
can take a shortcut.
Yeah, it's business, right? So people are just going to worry about margin. So that our philosophy is the complete opposite of that, and we just want to make sure the product's right, and we want to get case studies, and we want to build a business off of case studies and results. And even though it affects our margin initially, so be it, you know. And it's scary to think how taken back they were. That's why it's going to cost you double. We said, okay.
Yeah. Is that with the encasing of the MCT?
Correct, the carrier for the MCT, absolutely correct, yeah.
Because I've taken quite a bit of it and just the different types and companies that you can taste the difference in the way it's delivered, the MCT powder, but it's interesting. And is that going to be available in the UAE? Or?
Yes, I'm just going through the process of getting the product approved here. That's always fun. So we're just sorting that now. So hopefully that should be ready by September here. So that will be on the same. We're just launching a new website as well. That's being structured now. So there'll be the collagen and the bone broth on the same website, and there'll be packages where you can include the two. That's what I do now. I use the collagen powder, put it into my bone broth, and I have the two together. So my wife does it as well. She's a collagen junkie, so she consumes as much collagen as possible, and it definitely helps. In September, we're hoping to launch the bone broth in London as well. So that should be available in the UK. I had a lot of people ask me now in the UK, can we access it here? There are other options there. So we're going to try and sort of launch that as well. I'm moving to Europe, so I'm going to base myself in Europe, in a Spanish island of Ibiza, partying. And that's really sort of practicing what I preach. A pesticide-free island, eating from the land, and I just want to sort of give my family that opportunity to do that and see how we react, because Evie, my 10-year-old, she still suffers from the odd allergy. I preach that it's environmental, so I want to change the environment and see if it changes things. We get frequent blood tests done, so let's do 18 months there and see what the blood tests come out like, see if it does work.
That'd be interesting. We'll have to have you back on the podcast and report back to us how you've gone. So I've just got a couple of rapid fire questions at the end, just to get to know you a little bit better. You can take as long as you want, or you can just give us a one-word answer. But what's your all-time favourite book, or self-help book, or any type of book?
I'm just trying to think of the book. I got my eldest daughter to read it. It'll come back to me in a moment.
We can come back to that.
Yeah, it was off the back of The Secret. The Secret was the book that I read. It worked at the time, but the problem with The Secret which I sort of established afterwards, is that it's no action. Just sit there and the thoughts will come. Thinking it's a law of attraction. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
That's I sort of have a bit of a problem with that now. But I like the ethos.
Yeah.
The Slight Edge. So I knew it would come to me when we talked about it. So it's a book called The Slight Edge.
Yeah.
And it's a similar sort of basis to The Secret, but it's about doing, and it's and what curve are you on currently, because whatever curve you're on, you're probably heading more that way unless you stop and do something about it. And I even when my daughter was going for exams and she wasn't really studying enough, I said, look, read this book. And I think I said to her, if you read the book, I'll buy you a car. Just trying to get her to read it. It was amazing how quickly she read it. I said, but you need to tell me what you've learned from the book.
She's got the car now?
She's got the car. She's behind that now, but yeah, she got the car at the time, yes. And it was just an amazing book to put you on that successful mindset. And it's a book that I revisit, and I'm even thinking about getting my 11-year-old to read the book now as well. And it just changes your, it just gets you to stop and think and say, what way am I actually heading right now? And are you on the success curve or you're on the failure curve? Make sure you stop and head on the right way.
Who's the author of that?
I can't remember, but
I'll look it up.
The Slight Edge, yeah.
Yeah. Favorite movie? Have you ever got one?
Oh, it's changed now. So the intellect in me, but I have to say now, I just love the Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah,
so,
that's fair enough.
I just, the way it had been built up over the last 11 years, I think it was 22 different movies to get there. I think it was very clever ending. So I know it's very recent and it's probably sitting in my mind, but I have to say,
bit of recency bias.
Yeah,
there.
but I definitely didn't leave there disappointed.
No,
and I think, and it's one of the most popular films ever now, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Do you have any quotes that you'd say on a daily basis, or do you have quotes that you'd say in your coaching practice, or maybe to your daughters as well?
I'm laughing now because I dropped my daughter off at school this morning. She just she rolled her eyes at me when I dropped off to dancing yesterday. Said the same thing, and The Rock started saying it as well now. I can't say he got that from me, but it's to be the hardest worker in the room.
Yeah.
Always look around. I say it to my daughter because she's not the most naturally gifted at dancing, but it doesn't matter. I said the hard work will outdo talent, and it's something that I've really started to say to my daughter, and it's something that I always try and say to myself as well. And if you're not the hardest worker in the room, why not?
Yeah.
And try to be that person. Yeah.
Yeah. And a cheat meal, what would you have if you were going off the rails?
Bad word, Adam. Bad word. It's not cheat. It's not cheat.
Treat meal. You don't have any vices?
Yeah, definitely. I think, I'd say wine is, I do like a red wine. I go through stages. I'm trying to really eliminate yeast at the moment after I had no high intolerances, but sort of in the medium range as yeast came up a little bit. Yeah. So I'm not really drinking much wine at all. I'd maybe have a glass sort of 4 or 5 times a week maximum. Now I've sort of eliminated that currently. Sourdough based pizza. Yeah. Do like those. They're good. That'd be my cheat meal. Yeah.
So final question, if you could turn back the clock, maybe whether it was when you injured your knee or maybe when you first started Clean Living Co., is there any advice that you'd give yourself?
Advice for my former self? I think everything for me that I've done, and when I look back at sort of my mindset at the time, what I was going through, everything would be sort of around the knee injury. It's quite a pivotal time for me. I didn't realise it at the time, obviously. I had my head stuck. Now I realise how pivotal it was, and I wouldn't want to be too hard on myself if I was talking to my 15-year-old self, because the information or the people around me, they weren't there to know what was going on with my knee injury. But, I should have spent more time investigating what was going on and not just relying on what the medical profession were telling me, because I knew something wasn't right. They say, we'll just scrape your cartilage and then go back. I'll go back to football. My knee would collapse. Then I'll go into sort of district champions and, I'll do a triple jump and I'd find myself laying in the sandpit where my knee just collapsed. And then I'd just keep going back to it, Yeah. And it's frustrating when I look back at it that, I wasn't more inquisitive and said, actually, you don't know what you're talking about. Maybe I'd been a bit more diplomatic, but I need to see somebody else because what you're telling me is not working.
Yeah, but I guess that's what led you into your path now and your passion.
Sure. No regrets.
Your knee injury, So finally, where can people get in contact with you if they're interested in health coaching, but also bone broth and just to find out what you're doing, basically.
Yeah, so I mean, we're all over social media now these days, but the Clean Living Company on Instagram, Clean Living Co on Facebook, so you can find us through there, or email me at dean@cleanlivingcompany.ae, and I do my coaching through that platform currently as well. So they're the best mediums to contact us. Yep.
Awesome. Well, do you have any parting words or anything you want to leave us with?
Any inspirational wording? Nope. Be the hardest worker in the room. Yeah. Just see my daughter's eye rolling there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time. Thanks for agreeing to do the interview. It's been awesome.
Okay. Thank you, Adam. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.